Hey everybody, it's Katie here with another MOMnation Live and Learn, and today I have my favorite sidekick, JD, aka Jen Duncan.
Right.
And yes, hello everybody. Hello JD. And I have JD on the line today or on the call today because we are talking about one of my favorite things, and that is listing homes and what happens in that that preliminary listing appointment when we get together and start talking to clients about getting their home listed. JD sets a lot of appointments for me, and she accompanies me on these appointments. So I thought you were the absolute appropriate guest on the show today.
Thanks.
I love working with you. I love having you there. It's awesome. You're so knowledgeable. You're so friendly, which is really great. So I appreciate you. Thank you for that.
Aw, thanks.
Before we get into kind of what happens during the appointment, I don't think we can stress enough how laid back and sort of informal it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like when you think about a listing presentation or what they taught you back in the day when you first got your license, it feels like there's this kind of stuffy agent at the table telling you what to do and reading this big presentation to you, right?
Ties and like, oh no, we're moms.
Yeah, exactly. So that's certainly not us. We're very professional, of course, but it's laid back. So, you know, oftentimes, JD, when you're setting appointments, you've got people on the other line that are a little bit hesitant to meet.
Yeah. I mean, some people are a little bit nervous just to meet anyone in general, but then when it comes to selling your house, it's like, oh my God, like it's kind of the fear of unknown, you know?
Yeah.
It's like with buyers, like how they're afraid to talk to the lender. It's kind of the same, you know, but it's really not scary at all.
I promise. JD definitely doesn't bite, and most days I don't either. So
Most days.
I promise it's not scary. But a couple of things that people tend to be nervous about that we see over and over and over again is you know, how messy your house is. Like I'm probably not the buyer for your house, so don't worry about that.
Right.
You don't have to clean for us. We can absolutely see past it. So don't feel like you need to be show ready and everything needs to be super spiffy in order for us to come by. That's not the case, right, JD?
Yeah, that's a super common. Like, do I have to clean? You know, the kids will be home. Is that okay? Totally fine. Like we both have a kid. We know how messy it gets. It's fine because this is the appointment where we'll tell you how to get where you need to be.
Exactly. So don't worry about doing a whole bunch of stuff for us. And I loved your point, JD, because we are moms. So we totally get the screaming baby or the mama that has to breastfeed during the appointment. Like we don't care. We get it. We totally, also we're dog people. So we're cool with pets. I know a lot of people get kind of worried. I mean, obviously, if you have a dog that's going to, you know, bite my face off at the door, that's a little bit different. But most people's pets are friendly, and we're totally good with that.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And even like, you know how when you're on the phone, like, and the kids get louder when you're on the phone.
Right.
Always. Like, it's okay. Like, don't feel embarrassed. We know that it happens.
Exactly. It happens to us on a daily basis. So we feel, we're totally there with you, mama. So don't worry about it at all. Something else that I feel like people are kind of nervous about before we get to the table is that they may not know the process exactly.
Mm-hmm. It's
like
kind of overwhelming. Like if you don't know, you're just like, oh my God, what's involved?
Exactly. And I want to really stress not to be worried about that at all, because that is part of our job, is to educate and guide. And we do it all the time. I mean, we've done it almost 1,000 times now.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I would say we probably know what we're doing. We could probably guide you through that process. So don't be concerned at all if you're just absolutely unsure of what's going on. We'll guide you through that.
Ask questions too, because a lot of people are like, oh my God, I'm sorry, you know, to ask so many questions. It's okay. Like you should ask questions because there's so many different scenarios. Like, you know, selling and buying, selling and building, like selling, renting, and then buying or something. So don't worry about it. Like, it's
Exactly.
okay.
That is actually the best time for all of those questions, because that's when we're going to be in discovery, trying to figure out what the goals are, what the scenario is. And, you know, with those questions, it may spark other conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, you just brought up buying and renting and buying, or selling and renting and buying. What about if somebody feels like, hey, I feel like I have to sell my house in order to buy, but what about if we end up getting on that rental topic and they're
Right?
a great candidate to keep their current home as a rental?
Yeah, because it's not as hard as you would think. I
Right.
know, you know.
Right.
So that could be good
Exactly.
investment wise long term too.
100%. So keep those questions coming. Don't worry about asking us. I mean, sometimes we're sitting at the table, you know, this appointment could be anywhere from a half hour to an hour and a half. We've been there for 2 hours before. It just really depends on what the scenario is and what the questions are. And we're totally happy to spend some time on that. It's really important in the beginnings, you know, stages anyway.
For sure.
Another thing that I feel that people tend to worry about before they have a discussion about home listing is not having enough funds for marketing materials, photos, videos, Matterport, signs, blah, 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 all of that stuff that goes into listing a home.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, more often than not, I've come across that fear.
Mm-hmm.
And with us, I know not all of our competitors are the same. So not all realtors are alike, just so that you know, we all have our different ways of doing things. But with us, we don't charge any of those upfront costs. I know some other realtors have retainer fees and they have marketing fees and things that they charge upfront, sometimes in upwards of thousands of dollars, but that is not something that we do. So I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be kind of hesitant with that too. You know, like, well, what if it doesn't work out? Then you're out a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a good point. And I think that is a common worry for people. Well, hey, you know, if I have to drop a grand, $1,200, $1,500, whatever it is, and you don't do your job, well, I'm out that. Like, what happens then? So we don't do that, just so you guys know.
Another common concern I get is people thinking that they're wasting our time. Like, let's say they're not ready. Like, let's say they're a couple months out, you know, and they're like, well, we don't want to waste your time right now. It's not a waste of time to get ready up front, because you're going to set yourself up for a better situation for when you are ready. So don't ever feel like, you know, even if it's like over 6 months, well, we can at least go and give you the advice to, like, so you know what you need to do.
Exactly. And that's a really good segue into our next little piece here that we're going to talk about what really happens. So JD and I arrive at the house and we pull up to the door, we knock on it. What happens after that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what you just said is a big part of that. So when we come in, you know, again, don't worry about having clutter or things around. We'll talk about that. It's not a big deal. But when we come in, we typically like to do a quick tour first. Mm-hmm. So we're touring the home, we're walking around, you know, in and out of every room, in and out of every closet. I really want the homeowner to tell me the story about the home. Tell me when you bought it. You know, I've already done my preliminary research. So if there is information about the home online, which typically there is, I've already seen that. I already know what it looked like when you bought it.
Right.
I want to know what you've done to it. I am a total creeper. Yep. You know, just call me I Spy Katie. But anyway, yeah. So, but I mean, this is the homework that you really need to do in order to walk into a home and have a valuable conversation with a homeowner. So that is why I spy a little bit. So we'll walk through the home. Usually this is when I start getting peppered with questions. Well, you know, we were thinking about fixing this, or what do you think about painting our cabinets? Or would it increase the value of our home if we installed, I don't know, a swimming pool, something like that. So these are usually the questions that start coming out when we're touring and when we are looking at updates, upgrades, and you know, those different things that have been done on the home. often also, as we're going through those questions of, well, gee, what can I do to increase the value? It's really nice that we're doing the tour at that point, because then we're all looking at the same thing. We're all together and we can discuss, what those different things might be to do to increase the value when you are ready to sell.
Totally.
And that's a huge question. And I mean, I know JD, but our audience may not. My husband is a flipper. Now, these days, the flipping margins are a little bit different than what they used to be years ago. So he's not doing it so much anymore, but he's got a good 300 remodels under his belt. So, we have the experience on the team to not only discuss, what you can, in terms of, what you can improve to get the most bang out of your buck, but we also have people to refer that can help, that aren't going to rake you over the coals, that are good people in business that we know about, which is really huge.
Yeah, because I don't trust easily myself. Like I can't imagine, just any regular person trying to decide on that kind of stuff. Then we have a lot of experience with them, so really helpful.
Absolutely. And, depending on what it is, oftentimes we can also ballpark quote, hey, updating the flooring is probably going to run you about this much, depending on materials and things like that. So there are factors that go into it, but, we can do some ballpark quoting, which is really helpful for homeowners when they're prioritizing, when they're deciding, okay, we can do this and it's going to give us this, put us in this ballpark in terms of value, or we can do this. And, being able to compare the two, I think, is really important.
There's been times too where you've where people have said, okay, we plan to do this, 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 and this. And you're like, you actually don't need to. Like, it's not going to give you the return that you're looking for. And depending on the market, of course, you might be able to save people money by walking through early. Because you know how people are, they're like, oh God, let me fix everything so it's perfect, like when we list it, but they might not need to.
That is such a great point. I was actually chatting with a home seller last night, and she's extremely thorough. This girl is awesome. And she's like, hey, so we were thinking about getting a home inspection before we list our home. So then that way we know everything that's going on. If anything, we'll have it fixed, and then we'll have a pristine property on the market. And I said exactly what you just mentioned. I said, okay, you can do that, but think about this. There's literally like 6,500 some odd properties in Maricopa County on the market right now. We typically run at about 16 to 18,000. So you can imagine how low in inventory we are. Like how low can you go, basically, is where we're at right now. And so most buyers are going to come into that property and they're going to buy it regardless of if, there's a crack in the switch plate. Like you may, well, right. And that's just maybe a silly example, but you may be spending, $400 or $500 on an inspection and then going through and fixing all of these ticky-tacky little items that you probably don't even need to touch in these market conditions.
Yeah, there's some buyers that are waiving inspections. So I don't really.
We don't approve of that, but she's right.
But some are.
Yeah, they're certainly not represented by us, but some are. And if we're representing the seller, in a lot of cases, we're often not representing the buyer. They have their own situation. So however they are represented is... Yeah.
You will do us.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it works. We'll also talk about staging too. So JD and I will offer some staging advice. We do have a stager on the team that can come in if need be, or if the homeowner wants. And she runs the gamut from, she'll take your furniture and your decorations and sort of repurpose them, maybe open up the space a little bit more, or just freshen it up. So she does that, or straight to, renting furniture for an entire house if you want to go that route.
Right. Yeah, I've seen even just pulling your couch off the wall sometimes makes it look more homey. Yeah. So I'm sure she's got a lot of tricks up her sleeve.
Yeah, she totally does. And, throwing a throw rug underneath a coffee table, you know, that'll dress up the space, or underneath your dining room table, stuff like that. And, you know, she does pretty well with, you know, with the homeowners items that they already have. So when I say the word stage or don't freak out, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be all this, you know, furniture flying in the house.
Yeah. I feel like Mary Poppins, right?
Yeah.
Just come flying in.
Sometimes I feel like that. And then we'll usually sit down at the kitchen table or the dining room table after the tour, after we go over some staging suggestions. Often my sellers have a notebook and they're frantically writing, or they're frantically typing notes on their phone, because we do go through a lot of stuff during that initial tour. So I always suggest having, you know, a notebook or something handy, because it's a lot of information. Then we'll discuss the seller's particular goals. What is their situation? So that way we can customize showings. Right. So showing a home, especially in this market, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have people traipsing through your home all hours of the day with no notice and nobody cares about your kids or your pets. That's not really how it works. It can work like that, but again, that's not our sellers. That's somebody else's sellers that usually go that route. So JD and I will sit and discuss. We really want to have a good feel for our seller's situation, so that way we can coordinate special showing processes. We can customize the special showing process as per their needs. Right. I mean, we deal with a lot. I had one client that had 12 dogs once.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
well, yeah,
that was interesting.
You might have to like block out sometimes, you know?
Yeah, we did something fancy like that. And we just ended up positioning the property so that we knew it would go quickly and she wouldn't have to deal with it for long. But yeah, it was a combination of the two.
Well, a lot of the marketing helps a lot, because you already kind of know going into it what it'll be like. It's not like taking pictures of the ceiling or something like that.
Exactly. And that's a really good point. And you're good at this transition stuff, because that really brings us to our next segment and what we do next. Before arriving at any seller's property, they're going to receive an email from me that's going to have our full-blown marketing plan. I send it in email because it's really long, and I like to do everything in writing. So I want expectations set up front. The marketing plan goes over. There's a little bit about our team and just a little bit about what we do for our sellers. So our sellers kind of are familiar. They already have an idea of what we do for marketing and what we do, you know, for our sellers before we even get through the door. When we're sitting at the kitchen table, I bring this handy little folder that I leave with all of our home sellers. And inside that folder, there are 4 items. And this is what we go over at the table. You've got a little pamphlet here that goes over all of, well, I would say it's the important pieces, the real big pieces of our marketing plan. Yeah, the bullet points, kind of like the bigger items in terms of our marketing. There is so much that we do that I couldn't possibly fit it on 4 of these brochures. So we have to go with just the priorities. There's another form that I know that my competition does not use. I have never run into any other agent in Phoenix area, or even heard of one beyond Phoenix, that uses this form. It's something that our team has been using for quite a while, and we actually have never had anybody use it before, but we give it to all of our sellers. And it's called your Easy Exit Listing Guarantee. We are so confident that you're going to love us and our services, our marketing, our customer service, and our communication, that we're happy to give our sellers this form that basically, if they're ever unhappy with our services, if they want to stop in terms of, hey, you know what, I didn't end up getting that job I thought I was going to get, I'm no longer looking to sell, or hey, I changed my mind, I want to keep my house, whatever it is. I don't care what the reason is. All they have to do is sign that piece of paper and send it over to us. Within 24 hours, their listing will be removed from the market.
That's awesome. That's a common concern for people too. It's like being stuck in a contract. Even
Exactly.
just for like home stuff, like people don't want like pest control contracts or any of that stuff that,
Mhm.
you can't get out of it, or even like phones or whatever. But for your house, that's huge.
It is huge. And, here in Arizona, our listing contracts, I don't know if it's the same in other states, but our listing contracts are bilateral contracts. So that means both parties
Mm-hmm.
need to cancel the this form makes it a unilateral contract.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, of course, we ask that if something happened, and again, this has never happened, but if something happened and, the issue has to do with our service or our marketing, just give us a heads up and at least give us an opportunity to, correct it if
Mm-hmm.
possible. You don't have to. We just simply ask that you do that just so that, we're human, just so
Yeah.
that we can better ourselves.
Yeah, because sometimes you don't know like what other people's expectations are.
Mm-hmm.
Like my kid wants me to play with her after school. I'm like, well, if you don't tell me what you want, then I don't know what to do,
Exactly. Exactly. So we appreciate the communication. We pride ourselves in being super communicative. So I think it's true if you talk to any of our clients, they'll say, hey, JD was on top of it. Alex was on top of it. Matt was on top of it. Katie was on top of it, because that's really huge for us. When I first started, so I'm coming up on 14 years of having my broker's license. I know, it's so crazy. But when I first started, a statistic that will always stick with me was that the number one complaint that people have about their real estate agent is that they're not communicating enough.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, we hear it a lot, we see it a lot, and we even deal with it a lot because, we are working with cross agents all the time. So we're working with agents that maybe we're not familiar with, or maybe we are. And, we find that that's also the case on our end, and we're not even their clients.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So 2 more things in the packet. If we're having any specials, we'll put a coupon in your packet. We often run specials, cash back for if you buy a property. We often run specials for that, so we can put a little bit more cash in your pocket on a purchase. We also run specials on listing commissions. So we have very flexible listing fees anyway, but sometimes we run specials so that you can get, even better. And our fees, it's a sliding scale. This is what we talk about at the table, but our fees go all the way down to 0, to be honest. So, I mean, can't shake a stick at that, right?
Right. Yeah, no kidding.
So the last little handout that I have is kind of a plain looking piece of paper here. The questions. So the story I always tell is a true story. When I first started, again, listings are my absolute favorite. So when I first started, I just went listings, listings, listings. And I would go to, somebody's house. I would have this meeting with them, and I would get into my car after, and I would frantically write down everything they asked me, everything that they were concerned about, like what were their hot buttons. And after you do that 200, 300 times, you start to realize that there's a pattern here. There are only a handful of questions that anybody has ever asked me at the table. I mean, you see it too. You probably see it in buyer world too.
I do, yeah.
There's really just a handful of questions. They may ask it in a different way. It may be, a different sort of scenario, but the basics of the questions are the same. So we go through, I have 8 questions here. We go through them, and that usually, my sellers usually leave the table fully knowledgeable, very educated on the process, and have their expectations set perfectly for what's about to happen next. And those are questions like, how will you get me the most money? How much time will it take? Have I done this before? We all know the answer to that. What's my marketing plan? Who else is involved in terms of our team members? That's a really important one because, being a team and being able to leverage our time is super important. And that is how we are able to be so on top of everything for our clients, because we help each other out. We all wear a certain hat.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Started rain.
One of JD's clients is calling her right now.
Yeah.
But we all wear a certain hat, and that's what makes it a well-oiled machine. And it's been working well for years, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We talk about the fees because people are always interested in what the fee structure looks like. So we don't hide anything. We sit there and we talk about everything that they can expect. Do we have relationships with other vendors and service providers?
Oh my God.
This is a huge question. Like, I would be willing to bet more than half of my competition is stunned at the table when they get that question, because I don't know that it's everybody's priority to create a network of individuals and other businesses and other service providers that are beneficial to a buyer or a seller. I don't think it's such a priority for others as it is for us. I mean, it's always been a huge priority for us.
Yeah, and it's nice because, like, we've used them, so we know what their quality is like. We know that it'll get done. We know that their communication is good. I see a lot of times I see realtors on different groups, or clients that have a realtor are asking for those service providers. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, shouldn't they have like a network of people like that? Because you never know what you're going to get. I mean, we hear it all the time, like, landscapers don't call back, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And so I see the same thing in groups. I'll see people that are buying or selling that are asking for all sorts of things also. And I think to myself, why haven't you asked your agent? Why hasn't your agent provided you with, who they have developed relationships with over years of time? Mm-hmm. I also see agents in groups. So we have our special real estate groups, right, for just us. And I also see agents, oh, hey, anybody know of a good contractor or an electrician or an inspector or a pest control or a scorpion inspector or a mold inspector? Like, they're asking for these things. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you're burning time. You only have a certain amount of time in a contract to get things done typically.
Right.
If it's an inspection, or if, heaven forbid, you're a seller and your water heater pops during the escrow period, and you've got to get that fixed super fast because you're closing tomorrow. Like, go ahead, go out there and try to find somebody that can help you lickety split like that at the drop of a hat. You're not going to.
Right. That's why I never wanted to be a single agent, a brand new single agent by myself, like working under an experienced team who has that network is really important to helping our clients.
It's priceless, and it really helps with the stress level.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
Because let's face it, real estate can be stressful. Now,
no.
Yeah, right? It's right up there with, I think, divorce and having children. I think moving is the third biggest stressor of, the world.
Well, it's people's biggest asset. So you got to take care of it.
Right. And we understand how stressful it is. And that's why we have so many things that we put into place to relieve the stress and to make it the most pleasant experience that it possibly can be, knowing that, hey, at the end of the day, real estate is not an unstressful thing. It just isn't.
Right.
So that's the packet. And I leave that with all of our homeowners when we leave. The last thing that we discuss is the move. So, like JD said at the beginning of the conversation, maybe you're buying another property. So we need to discuss how we can coordinate it so you only move once, right? Everybody only wants to move once. Who wants to move to, a rental for 2 weeks or whatever it is?
It happens, but yeah, we got to talk about it and see what your expectations are so that we can try and come up with a plan for that.
Exactly. And then we have, referrals for that scenario too. We have resources for that. We've got this really cool checklist. We have a bunch of these things, but this one in particular is my favorite. 2 things. We have a checklist that begins 2 months before you move. And it basically says, okay, this day do this day do this week is going to be, you begin to pack this week or whatever it is. And it's really laid out. It's a couple of pages long, but it's an absolute lifesaver. And our buyers
2 days before moving.
Yeah, right. Some people do. In fact, my husband, Matt, when we moved for the first time together, that's what he said. I'm like, babe, we're moving next week. We should probably pack. He's like, oh, no, we'll just pack that day. Yeah, that worked out real well. You should ask him about that sometime when you see him.
Right.
See how well that worked
That's
out
very
for him.
stressful. But yeah, no, the checklist is helpful.
Checklist is helpful. And then I have an address change checklist. So you know how you forget like magazine subscriptions and you forget to change your address with your doctor and stuff like that. So we have that resource available too. So this is the time when I'm discovering, or we're discovering more about our client. So that way we can present them or provide them with the resources, the referrals, the services that they need in order to get the job done. And then we just usually talk about what's going on, current events, family, get to know each other, and visit just a little bit. You don't have to visit with me if you don't want to, but we like to do that, just get to know our clients a little bit better, and then away we go. It's as easy as pie, really.
What do you do after? Like, after you see the house, what do you send them stuff, right?
Oh, that's a good point. Yes. So we'll discuss price, and we'll discuss value, and we'll discuss comparables during the appointment. Right. And then after, once we've had an opportunity to tour the home, we know what's going on with the family's particular scenario. If they have anything that we need to coordinate that's a little bit special or customize that's a little bit special, I put all of that into a report, including the comparable sales, including our pricing suggestions, and send that after the visit. So that usually comes either that evening or the next day. And then that way our sellers are fully prepared to move forward.
And don't be afraid. So one thing that people are like, give you the side eye sometimes, like, why are you taking pictures right now? It's just for you.
Right. That's a good point. So during the tour, I take pictures, and that way I can easily add them to my Trello board, right, JD?
Not black.
Right. So I take pictures just because you have to imagine I'm in and out of houses on a daily, every week. And so I'm human. I may forget some feature or something like that. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to leave it up to my brain to retain all of that. So I do take pictures of the things that I know I need to remember. So that way, when I'm sitting down creating the report, it's almost like I'm back in the house again and I can revisit it. I never share them. They have never left my phone. They get deleted as soon as I'm finished with them. They don't go on Facebook. Yeah. JD doesn't even see them, and they don't end up being part of a meme later or anything like that. So yeah, don't worry. No, but that's a good point. All right. Well, JD, if anybody would like to talk with us, they can certainly message us on Facebook. My cell phone number, text friendly, is 480-250-0023. And you can always check us out on Google. Like, I urge you to actually Google Katie Holly Lambert, Team EvoAZ. You'll get pages and pages and more information than you probably ever wish to know about me. But I'm very Google friendly, which is part of our marketing, right? It's really, really important. So Google me or visit EvoAZ.com. That is EvoAZ.com. We probably have over 200 testimonials.
Oh, wow.
Past clients.
Website looks awesome too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, as you know, we just rolled that out. So good stuff.
Cool.
All right, JD, did I forget anything?
I don't think so. You already got that. We don't bite. So yeah, just message us.
Well, she doesn't. I might. Just kidding. Just kidding. Definitely message us. We're here for you. Like I said, I love listings, and we're always up to take on more listings. Doesn't matter how many we have, we can handle it. So
she's awesome at it.
Oh, thanks. Well, thank you for your time.
Thanks. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.